with Julia Scoville. I'm so excited because today I've got amazing guest Johnny who will share his story in a minute with us. But one thing I want to point out, remember the time when you started your own business and you were full of enthusiasm and you were thinking, I'm going to create something great, it's going to give me time freedom. And you painted that picture where you maybe will be walking your dog in the lunch hour and going pick up your kids from school. How little did we know, right, at that time that it's maybe really, really far from being truth. Well, today the story is all about how to balance your work life, your business, and how we all started. So, Johnny, huge welcome.
Hi, Julia. Nice to meet you.
So, Johnny, your story goes that you launched Manning His Tutors in 2008, which was setting up, it's like narrow education gap, but providing high quality but affordable tuition to disadvantaged pupils. And now you have grown to 300 plus tutors working with you, approximately over 100 secondary schools nationwide. That's amazing achievement, number one. And
Thank you.
also, I know that it hasn't been straightforward journey for you, and your business started from from the place of like a thought, an idea, a passion, and then you went through COVID. So take me back to that time when you actually came up with the idea. What has been happening for you? Why you decided to go into providing tuition?
Yeah, so we're going back to 2008, and I was graduating from university. I studied maths in London Imperial, and graduating with a degree in 2008 when there's a financial crash on. Taking that degree into the city, as a lot of people did, didn't seem like an attractive option. Anyone I knew who had a job at the time had redundancies pending, hanging over them, and the world of work is supposed to be the stable option. I thought, that doesn't look too stable. So I said, right, I'm going to do something for myself. And I only had the ambition. A lot of people go into business. There's a lot of podcasts, a lot of hype around starting your own business that you've got to go in and be dreaming of the exit and becoming a millionaire and chasing this huge, often unreachable goal. I went in purely with the ambition at the time of having a better existence than getting a job. So looking at the starting salary I might have been achieving and going, if I can achieve that in my first year, but off my own back, I'm in a way better position. And I think 2008, I think I was dreaming of getting £20,000. In that first year, I did manage to get, I think, 25,000. I was like, right, that's it. I've made it. And now all I've got to do is grow this. So that was the ambition back then. Over the years, the ambition has changed, of course, but going into it, it wasn't, I've got to be a millionaire. It's, I've got to create something that means I'm responsible for my own destiny.
So ultimately, your dream started in a place where you wanted to exit corporate world as such and create of something of your own. And initial idea, if I can replace my income, my salary, that will be a good start. Well, you are quite far from it now, aren't you? So tell me more how your journey unraveled, because I know it sounds easy, as we all know, but actually in reality it wasn't. And I know that COVID was massive hurdle for you.
Yeah, I think COVID was a huge hurdle for a lot of businesses, a lot of people, and it's something that just we didn't see coming, obviously. For us, we'd been experiencing some reasonably nice organic growth up until that point and thought I knew where the business was heading. Then COVID came along, and it was funny because 95% of our work is actually working with schools, working with academies, rather than private tuition. It's putting it in place for the schools to make sure it can reach disadvantaged pupils. And when they closed schools, I actually rubbed my hands with glee. I thought, right, the schools are going to need even more tuition to help the kids get through their exams. And bizarrely, I said out loud to someone, I was like, they'll never cancel exams. And then I think, the moment I tempted fate like that, Boris Johnson came on and said, GCSEs and A-levels are cancelled. The teachers get to make up the grades. And with that, our order book disappeared. So I learned quite a lot at that stage. I learned that you can't put too much on trust and good faith. I had really hoped that the relationships were built with schools and school leaders at the time might have meant that the tuition would continue. But when push comes to shove, very sadly, people then start to become a bit more insular and look out for themselves and reasonably make decisions that are sort of self-protecting rather than considering of wider relationships. So that was a huge blow to us. Now, risk, we've got quite a lot of risk in my family. My wife is also an entrepreneur, and she runs a bookshop bar based in East London, and also runs that bookshop at festivals, has a book tent. And so we were double exposed, essentially. Both of our businesses were struggling. So
Also, let me just pause you here for a second. At that time, you also had children. You've got children, right? So it's not just two of you. You've got children to look after. So two of you fully exposed in terms of your business, your income, what's happening. At the same time, your parents, you obviously need to provide. So what has been happening for two of you at that time? I can't imagine. Like usually the scenario, like one of the parties is in employment, another one is running business, but having two of you risking and exposing yourself to risk. Tell me more about that time. What kind of conversation been happening in a household when kids are in bed?
When kids were in bed, we were working because with the lockdown, no childcare, no school. We had two kids at the time and a third on the way. So our third was born in September 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. So we had to lock down hard because we didn't know what COVID was going to do to pregnancy or to pregnant women, and we were quite fearful about that. So even when people were starting to come out of lockdown, we were still sort of very stringent with not exposing ourselves. So it was a tough time for everyone. We found it particularly tough. We definitely were overexposed as a family to the risks of that. Like you say, it would have been nice if one person was getting some furlough payments. It was really tough that those people who were self-employed or running small businesses weren't getting the support. So when the kids were in bed, it was two people both trying to pivot their businesses and really, taking the opportunity to work. So wait until 8 o'clock and the kids finally settled down to then work from 8 until midnight or whatever we had to do.
Wow. So pretty much like all of your time throughout the COVID was like work, work, work. When we talk about that family lifestyle balance, like lots of us going into business thinking it's going to give us freedom, it's going to give us opportunity to balance, and we can choose our own hours. Very often we'll find ourselves working more than we ever did, right? Working even more than we ever did for when we were employed. So what I guess has sustained you during that time? Because, it is tough. And it's not just one of you, again, two of you. So like even personal time, right, as a husband and wife is jeopardized.
Yeah, the personal time in terms of the time that my wife and I got to spend together was definitely the thing that hit the chopping block, because it was a case of, right, one of us is looking after the kids so the other one can work, and then we'll hand over. The other parent takes the childcare where the other one does what they need to do for work. And then that overlap time of us all being together as a family, or my wife and I being together, was definitely, in that period of COVID, the thing that we lost out on. But that's not been the larger scale picture. You were talking there about people going into business for themselves and thinking they're going to have more time, but actually having less. And that's something I've been really diligent and controlled about over the years, because the tough thing with having your own business is the to-do list never finishes. And if you let your to-do list dictate how much work you're going to do, then you will work every single hour under the sun at the expense of those things that you've spoken about, at the expense of spending time with your kids or your wife, your partner, at the expense of taking time for yourself to exercise or to pursue your passions, and that's always been something that I was careful to guard against. So, with the exception of that period in the pandemic where it was, emergency situation and we've got to do what's got to be done because our lives are on the line, essentially, or our livelihoods, at least, were on the line. Before that and after that, something I've been much more controlled about, in sort of, saying that this is how many hours I work. I will turn up at this time and I will leave at that time, and I will leave work there. And I personally have always found a mantra that you get as much done in 6 hours as you do in 8. If you come into work for 8 hours, you will just do the work slower. You will find that opportunity to meander through your coffee break. And so I've always given myself 6 hours. So I'll turn up at 9, I'll finish at 3, and that then gives me the time to pursue sport or music, which for me are the things that I'm really passionate about. And I believe that has a really positive knock-on effect on the work that I'm able to do, because I'm fulfilled there and I'm energized by running, by cycling, and that energy then comes back into the workplace.
I love that. I love what you just said, that you became strict with yourself and set yourself a boundary in terms of time frame. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, if you give someone 24 hours to complete a task, they will do it. Or if you give 3 hours, they will do it. It's all about the mindset, and like allowing or focusing yourself, saying, I only work 6 hours. I only got 6 hours today to fit and do what I want to do. I think straight away what will happen is your creativity will kick in, because you will be thinking, oh my God, I've got so much to do, how I can do it, how I can achieve it, instead of thinking, well, like I'll go and cook dinner and then I still got 3 hours before bedtime and I'll carry on. Your creative faculty switches on. And one of my favorite mantras I install with all my clients is number one, whenever a task lands in your email box, on your list to do, or anywhere, never ever do it yourself. Always ask yourself, who can do it for me? Because you can, right? The list is endless. You can't do everything. You're not Superman. You're not a superwoman. You can't do everything. So who can do it for me? Like, be smarter, right? Like, be creative. How you can do more with less. How you can fit all of your activities, all of your tasks in 6 hours. That's it. 6 hours to be, and that's it. No more, right? Like I said, be very, very fractionate, because other time needs to be protected for your family, for your hobbies, for well-being. Otherwise, it would never happen, right? We always think, oh yeah, I'll do it tomorrow, or I just get this project done and then I'll do X, Y, and Z. But we all know it's never happens. There is always something, and it's never endless. So I love your, I guess, mindset more than anything, is that you allow yourself just to focus on the 6 hours.
Yeah. Well, I actually wrote myself a contract once. So,
Oh, come on, tell me more about that. I love that.
well, yeah, I think it's something that if you're running your own business, you've got your employees and you draw up an employment contract for them, and it says how many hours of work they're supposed to do in a week. And so many founders, they are an employee of the business. If you're set up as a limited company, you're an employee, and yet very rarely would a founder bother putting a contract in place with themselves. But I did one. And I put in that contract that each week I had to do 6 hours of exercise, 6 hours of music, and 6 hours of learning as part of my job. And the joke with myself is, you've got the 48-hour European Working Time Directive. You're not allowed to go beyond that. And I didn't sign the escape clause for that. So I said, right, okay, there we go. I am now confined. I will do my sport. I will do the music. I will do the learning. And there will only be 30 hours left after that I'm allowed to work on the business. So, yeah, that was nice for keeping me very confined and really clearly setting up those boundaries that I wasn't allowed to go beyond.
Why have you specifically chosen those categories? You said to work, to exercise, to do hobbies.
Yeah, for me it was sport, music, and learning, and I, as much as it's a little bit of a joke having a contract with yourself, I do think that doing those things positively impact the quality of the work that I'm able to do for the business. And certainly things that I would encourage, with employees, I'm always keen to ensure that they've got the time and the space to pursue the things that are important to them as well. Because if they start feeling like work is getting in the way of what really matters to them, yes, okay, you want them to be passionate about your business, but all said and done, it's never going to be their number one priority, right? So ensuring that work doesn't get in the way of what's really important to them, and that they still have the space to pursue that, they're going to bring their A game to work as a result of that. And I wanted to have the same for myself.
Do you put that into their contract as well, that they have to exercise for the job?
I've thought about it. I've definitely toyed with the idea, but I thought it might be overstepping the mark slightly.
You know what? It's interesting that, like, you made me think maybe that's what we should do as a business owners, as innovators, as leaders, because big corporate companies, to bring something like this, it can be quite scary. You have to convince shareholders, blah blah blah. Whereas us as a small, medium-sized business owners, we're the leaders, we're decision makers. And I had another guest on my podcast, and we talk about the movement and benefits of movement at work, and that's all what his business is. It provides system, I guess, to workplaces to encourage all employees inclusively to move more. And move doesn't mean go to the gym, go for running. It could be just simple walking to work, for example. So any form of movement and inclusivity is important. And he has amazing stats. Once he rolled out those projects, the attrition rate, the sickness rates goes down. So actually listening to you right now, I'm thinking maybe as leaders, as innovators, we should include that and as a part of the contract, obviously being inclusive in terms of movement. But if we know that what nourishing our body, our minds, it's make us more productive, more present, more happier as well. It just makes sense, right? Why not?
Yeah. So it's definitely one to explore. Now, I'd much rather give someone a day off because they said, look, I've got this opportunity to go and do this thing that I'm really excited about, than for someone to say, look, I just want a day off to sit around and mooch for a day and have a pillow day. What was a quote I saw the other day is, we should do away with mental health days. You don't want people phoning up and saying, I don't feel great today, I don't want to come to work. It should be the opposite. You should be able to phone your employer and say, I am feeling fantastic today and I want to go and do this with it or do that with it. I don't want to waste this wonderful day at work. There's possibly a reframe in there, and there's definitely there's something we could explore.
And yes, writing a contract with yourself, I love that idea. And you ultimately came to design like something like a job role, right, for yourself, but also understanding how you perform best and what makes you better leader, what makes you more productive, more effective, more happy version. And you included all of those different parameters, not just work, but like you said, music, fitness, things that makes ourselves happier. I think that's an amazing idea. It's certainly something I would do for myself, and signing the contract and allocating the hours, right? Working hours. Gonna send myself on holidays, contractual holidays. And like what happens, the consequences of not following that job description or those expectations. I think that's I love that, and hold yourself accountable in that way, because before you know it, the day runs away, the task run away, everything is emergency, everything needs to be done now, and you get sucked into this massive black hole, right?
Yeah, and the other part of it is the sort of the looking back. One thing I'm always doing is tracking what it is I am doing. So just throughout the day, saying, okay, well, I'm working on the finance aspect of the business now, or I'm working on the marketing, or sometimes it's just I'm working on the miscellaneous. I'm just going through the inbox and dealing with what I've got to deal with. But tracking those hours and reflecting back on it on a weekly or a monthly or on a yearly basis is like, was I spending my time on things that use my skill set use the seniority I have in the business, or was I getting sucked into something that, like you say, Julia, that I shouldn't have been getting sucked into, that I should have been delegating to someone else? And that's really useful, especially when you're growing as a business, because you're going to want to take on other employees. And I think quite often a business grows and the founder takes on an employee and they're kind of doing a bit of everything, and then the new employee starts doing a bit of everything as well, and there's overlap, and it's not very calibrated. But if you're tracking your hours and you can look back and say, well, last year I spent, 1 day a week dealing with the finance of the business, then you can make a much more strategic hire and say, right, rather than just taking on a new full-time employee, I'm going to take on a part-time finance assistant who's going to come and work with me 1 day a week. Maybe even 1.5, because you knew it better than they're going to know it, but whatever it might be, you can be more strategic about who you're taking on, and you'll know the impact that's going to have on your time. Okay, that's going to disappear from my schedule. What am I going to fill it with? That means I'm going to be freer to do more marketing, or to push our business, or to sort of be the face of the business, depending on who you are and how you want to drive.
How do you track your activities? Because, I'm sure many listeners and viewers listening to this or watching this and thinking, yes, it's all well to track, but I don't even have time to track, right?
I've been through a few different iterations. Right now I'm using a Google Chrome extension that's literally called Time Tracker, and just start one task, stop it, and no one's perfect. I forget to do it sometimes, but you go back at the end of the day and sort of go, oh yeah, that's what I was doing at that time, that's what I was doing at that time. I don't use it as much anymore, but I even used to have one task that was called procrastinating. And if I found myself getting distracted, I'd turn on the procrastinating task. And you know what? That kept how long I procrastinated. I didn't go down any YouTube rabbit holes after that moment in time, because I could see the timer ticking away and going, you've been procrastinating for 9 minutes now. So that really, I haven't turned on the procrastination task for quite some time now.
Wow, I love that. You're so disciplined, right? You are so disciplined, and then also holding yourself self accountable in that way, and utilizing the tools. I think that's amazing. Quite brave thing to do as well, right? Because you have to be honest with yourself. It's like you have to make a contract with yourself that you will be willing and open to do that, and look into where the time has gone, because very often we're busy for the sake of busy, but actually, do you want to become the top? Do you want to create that lifestyle where you can balance? And it's not going to happen by itself, right? It does come from tracking the tools, understanding, which then provides you data and information that you can utilize. And like you said, either hire people or put something in place that will help you to achieve your goals.
Yeah, and like you say, it's quite exposing, and it's you've got to be really honest with yourself. But it's really helpful as well, because I've found that some tasks that you do feel like you're working harder and being busier, and they're not often the tasks that get the greatest results. So going through your inbox, for example, or having inbox zero, I haven't tried to have inbox zero for about a decade now, because it becomes like you almost feel like you're working even though you're not. You're just responding to what's coming in. Whereas something like developing a marketing plan or developing a new product and rolling that out often doesn't feel like hard work. You're sitting there with a blank sheet of paper and you're musing, or you're going for a stroll and thinking, like, how does this come together? Or even in recent years, it's you're using ChatGPT or Claude as a soundboard to go, I'm thinking about this, so how's that going to iterate? It feels like easier work. And if you weren't tracking your time and saying, no, I am going to put 2 hours a day into that sort of activity, or 1 day a week into that, whatever it might be, I think you tend to avoid it, because you think, oh, well, my time would be better spent fighting these fires, or responding to those emails, or keeping up with that, or whatever it might be, which feels busier but actually has less impact on your business.
So becoming very intentional with your time and structuring that in your diary consistently. Like you said, even if it's 1 hour a week to work on your marketing plan, imagine if you would have booked that 1 hour a week. There are 52 weeks, which means 52 hours in a year that you committing yourself to work on your marketing plan compared to maybe not working on it at all and just being busy for the sake of busy, right? And not taking that time out. So even if it's that 1 hour in your diary, it's better than have no hour, right? Or thinking, yeah, I'll do it later. There will be perfect time when or day when I'll finally sit down and I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, you say that being busy for the sake of busy, you can definitely fool yourself that you're working hard, I think. But the flip thing happens with the time tracking as well. I've definitely had some days I get to the end of the day and go, was that a hard day's work? What did I do? And it's quite nice to sit back and look back and go, actually, yeah, that was, I did that, I covered that, I met the needs of the business, I made sure we were staying legal, I made sure I spent time with that employee. I wasn't achieving anything myself, but I was giving them the time, the attention that they need to fulfill and to deliver for the business and to feel supported. So it's quite nice to reflect back that way. It can go both ways. It can show you that you've been more productive than you thought you were, and equally it can sort of expose when you're kidding yourself that you're working hard just because you're moving some things around.
So you're not talking about employees. Like I know you've got over 300 tutors on your books. And I know they're probably on self-employed basis, right? Collaborating with you. But nevertheless, you still have to manage that amount of people. So how do you do it? Being a dad, like you said, I only work 6 hours a day. How do you navigate that? Because that's one of the biggest pain points I think of any entrepreneur business owner is people in a business. Because as people, we're not robots, we're not clothes, we're not ChatGPTs, we do have emotions and we've got our lives and stories happening. So yeah, what I guess what's your secret?
Yeah, so there's 300 self-employed tutors, like you say, and then we've got a team of employees working in the office as well. There's a few things around that. I think as a business, you need you to be prepared for what can go wrong and to plan for that. I think we often assume things are going to cruise at 100%, and you forecast like as if everything's going to go right, and you don't build the sort of slack into the system. So I think being careful about that. I'll give you an example. So we do invigilation work with some schools. So our team of tutors also would come in as exam invigilators or readers or scribes for GCSEs and A-levels and mock exams. And with that, if we've got a team of, say, 20 being deployed on a day at several different schools across London, we don't just assume that they're all going to turn up, because things happen, right? People get ill in the night, people sleep through alarms, there's family emergencies that happen. So what we've actually built into the system is a backup process. So if we've got 20 people, we've also got 2 people that are paid to be spares on that day. So they're waking up the same and brushing their teeth and having their breakfast the same as the 20 who are going. And the 20 who are going and checking in with us by 6:45 in the morning and saying, look, I'm awake, I've had my breakfast, I'm good to go. And so long as we get those 20 check-ins, the spares can go back to bed or go about their day, whatever they want to do. But if we've got anyone that's missing, that's when the spares get deployed. So what we're making sure is we've got that slack built into the system that we, like you say, we know that we're dealing with humans. And when you're dealing with humans, the stuff can go wrong. And so we're prepared for that, and we're actually making the business model around that. And that can apply, with your employees as well. It doesn't have to be this team of self-employed invigilators going out. It can be understanding that you need to be prepared for holidays coming at not the ideal time, or holidays you can kind of prepare for a little bit better than sickness. What are we going to do if that member of staff is sick? Do we have the capacity to cover for them, or is our entire team working at 100% of capacity all the time already, and therefore there's no slack to handle unexpected illness or absence? So something we always do is checking in with our employees, on a weekly basis. How are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 5? Are you at max capacity right now, or are you searching around for work? And we're trying to make sure that if no one's on holiday, or if no one's off sick, then everyone's kind of mid-table. Everyone's feeling like, I'm working, but I could do more if push came to shove.
That because two-way communication with your employees and team in a way that how you feel question rather than what you've got to do on your list, right? I think it's such a powerful question, makes you, number one, human, right? There is a human connection. Number two, you being proactive as a business rather than reactive to what employee you've got to, to bring to you. So, like those people you said on standby. So if you don't need them, so they get paid. So they've got pretty much full day to themselves to do whatever they want.
So they only get their full pay if they go in, but they do get a small payment for being that person who's on standby. So they do get a pay for the inconvenience of waking up, putting their clothes on, and being ready to go if they're needed.
And how, I guess, I'm just trying to understand when you set the boundaries, you set the contract. How do people react to to that arrangement?
Yeah, it's funny. Before we had those spares in place, we had a certain level of dropout rate from our invigilators. I can't remember exactly what the percentage was. And then when we put the spares in place, the peculiar thing was that the dropout rate from the main team of invigilators actually went up. So I think there's this bizarre human condition that when you know there's a backup, we had people phoning in and go, I'm not feeling great. Could you send the spare? I said, hang on a second. No, the spare is there for the person who really can't make it, the person who has had a serious emergency in the night. So that's been an interesting balancing act of having this backup system in place, but equally making sure that everyone understands that it's there for emergencies and not just for, hey, I don't feel like going today. And we try and share the load of that. So it's not that the same person is being the spare every day. It's people will take it in turns, and so it's got that collaborative effort feel to it of I'm here to be your backup system one day, and you'll be there to be my backup the next day. So I think that works well as a team collaboration.
I know pilots, they've got similar system because obviously pilots have to be alert, they have to be well rested. There are so many flying hours and gaps in between. So I know they are a lot on standby and they have to report if they're not feeling well or they didn't get enough sleep. They literally just can't turn up to work and have to be, covered by someone else. So I like your approach in that way. So that's very interesting in terms of teams, how you're protecting your time, but also maximizing your team output and having that two-way conversation with them. Is there anything else that you, as a business owner, implement in your business to sustain those 6 hours, golden 6 hours a day?
Yeah, I mean, there's a very old maxim, isn't there, about delegation that definitely sits in the back of my head often as if someone else can do it 80% as well as you, give it to them. Because I think that's the hardest part that founders feel when handing something over. Is that, well, if I do this, it's going to be done to absolutely my standard and at this speed. But if I give it to them, it's not going to be done quite so well, or it's going to take me as long to explain it to them as it would to do it. But what you've got to remember is you're investing not just in them doing it for you this time, but in them doing it for you this time and the next time and the next time, and them actually growing. And ideally, them eventually doing it better than you were doing it in the first place anyway. So that's really helpful with delegation and understanding that it's not just about the short-term results of this, but the long-term. And there's definitely things that if I don't hand it to someone else, the hard thing about being a founder is you're barely accountable to anyone. So there's some tasks that are on my plate that I do them for a while, I do them on a weekly basis, and then I stop doing them because I find something else that's more important. And there's no boss looking at me and going, hey, you're supposed to do that every week. Why haven't you done that? So again, a lot of those tasks, if it absolutely has to be done on a regular basis, don't do it yourself because there's no one to tell you off. Make sure you're giving that to someone else and that you've built the check back process to ensure that it gets done on a weekly basis. Is it something that needs to have a little green box filled in? There's a fantastic book, The Checklist Manifesto, that I definitely implemented parts of in my business of not only doing but sort of verifying it's done somehow. The great example of just every sort of cafe and pub toilet up and down the country. It's not the task of cleaning it that makes it happen. It's the fact that you clean it and then you sign on the wall to say that it's done. Making sure that in your business operations that exists.
Sounds like you've got quite a lot of good tools implemented in your business. And I'm just wondering, where did you learn them? Are there any books that you specifically maybe tapped into, or mythologies or people that you're following to learn the best practices?
So I think I started my business journey thinking that all business books were going to be the sort of self-help or make a million sort of Tony Robbins-esque books of just believe in yourself and you can do business. And I sort of shied away from them. I definitely had an arrogance of a 21-year-old of like, oh, I'm the first person who's ever launched a business and I'm going to do it my way. I've definitely decided I was wrong on that, and now I am ploughing my way through business books like you wouldn't believe. And quite a lot of them, I don't agree with everything that's in them, but take what you like and leave the rest of the door has been my mantra lately. I think some of my favorites recently, I've mentioned Checklist Manifesto already. I'm currently reading Blue Ocean Strategy, which I think is fantastic. I think the book that everyone should read is E-Myth, or I had the updated version, E-Myth Revisited. Some of the stuff that we've talked about today, monitoring your hours, keeping it confined, making sure you're delegating. A good chunk of it comes from within that book. And, making the smart hires because you know what you're doing. So, I think there's some of my highlights at the moment.
Love those books. I've got those books as well. And I think as a business owner, I love what you said. It's not just about the mindset in terms of like motivation and believe in yourself. That's one element. But then the second element is we have to learn everything in the business, being finance director, being marketing director, right? Being HR manager. And if those skills are lacking within us, certainly we have to develop if we want to have successful business, or delegate to someone who does, because without them, like, it's just not going to work, right? There will be some aspects in your business that will be lacking.
Yeah, and the joy of it is being humble as well, and sort of going, actually, I don't need to be the best at everything. And you sort of come in and you, like you say, certainly bootstrap businesses, you have to do some marketing, you have to do some operations, you have to do some finance. But actually, the founder is potentially going to be the jack of all trades and will understand all of these things. But as you grow, you need to take on people that are better than you in each of those, and to understand that your role is bringing together all of these skill sets and making them work cohesively, and sort of not having any arrogance or any sort of pretense, or being worried about not being the best. You really got to swallow all of your pride and go, okay, this person's going to do this much, much better than I will, so let's let them do it and let's get out of their way and make sure they've got the tools to do so, and the passion and the will and the drive to do so for the sake of the business.
Which is great, and I can hear lots of listeners and viewers right now saying, "Yes, Johnny, but you don't understand. They don't listen to me. They don't do it to the standard I want. They like I have to chase them all the time, and like there will be so many objections right now. I just can't hear it. So, can you enlighten us? I'm sure you went through the same, right? So, how do you navigate that? How do you uh, like avoid ending up doing everything by yourself at the end?
Really good question, and the way that I've approached it has definitely evolved over the years. And I've had fantastic employees. I've had some employees that have been slightly harder work, and I think understanding that every single person that you work with or that comes to work for the business is different. I had a great mentor who sort of said, some people you need to lead them and you need to walk in front and show them the way. Some people you need to walk alongside and do it with them and help them develop that way. And some people you stand behind and sort of give a push and then watch how far they go. And your business will be made up of all of those different characters. And so trying to have the empathy to understand what's going to work best for one is not going to work well for another. We did a fantastic team building exercise a number of years ago where we went and did an escape room, but beforehand we'd completed a sort of Miggs-Bryer psychoanalysis, so we all knew who was, well, we didn't know at the time until after the escape room, but who was a red, who was yellow, who was blue, who was green, who cared about the outcome and who cared about the journey, who was a doer, who was a thinker. And they didn't tell us the results until after we'd done the escape room and they'd filmed us doing so. And then they said, right, you were a red and you just grab hold of things and you go and do one. This person's a blue, and look, if you watch this video back, they were working very nicely on this and we're probably going to get to the end of this puzzle until you stormed in and took it off with them. So that then became a message of not speaking to someone how you want to be spoken to yourself, but speaking to other people how they need to be spoken to. So understanding what's important to that employee, how they think, how they approach tasks, how they approach problems. That's the sort of, the emotional side of it. I think Julia is saying as well, frustrations with employees. I think there's, the practical side of things, the tools that you're putting in place, sort of the clarity of expectation, of knowing what needs to be achieved, when it needs to be achieved by. We've been through different ways of managing tasks, from using Trello originally. It's a really simple, easy way of just everyone knowing. We had to organise it like, these are all the tasks you've got to do, but these are the 3 top priority, and sort of checking in on that on a frequent basis. We've moved now to using Motion, again, and so just making sure when we're assigning tasks to each other, and it's myself to employees, equally it's the employees to myself, anything we're asking each other to do, it goes into Motion, so that there's that log of, this is what we expect to happen, this is how long we expect it to take, and this is when we expect it to be done by. And that's really good for seeing, are we expecting too much, or we're not expecting enough, how busy are people. But then there's as well the structure of how you're managing your staff. It's the weekly team meetings, it's the fortnightly or the monthly one-on-ones, it's the how you structure the annual review, and making sure your annual review isn't just we get together, we sit down and we talk. It's making sure there's a structure to that. What is expected of you? What's in the job contract? Are you meeting those objectives? What are, and this is something we're working right now, what are the core values of the business, and how are you as an employee demonstrating those core values? And then just for the sort of regular check-ins, my favourite one that I've only recently moved across to is that sort of monthly or quarterly check-ins are basically based around 2 main questions. What's working? What's not working? Ask that of your employee, and then also sort of telling your employee from your perspective. And that it's really great. There's sort of, no one's getting offended, everyone's feeling heard, and just from those 2 questions going both ways puts everyone on the right track for the next month until you have that chat again.
I love that. Like if you're listening right now and you don't have structured one-to-ones with your team, You don't have team meetings, whatever. Literally just grab that time to book in your diary or arrange your next team meeting and ask those two questions: what's working, what doesn't. That's it, simple, right? And you'll get so much data. I can just imagine. And it's interesting to hear you back, Johnny. I think what I am I guess, observing with you that you went on a journey yourself as a leader and you are quite perceptive to feedback, right? And your story of taking your team on escape room, and then you learn yourself about yourself. This is how my natural reaction, this is how I approach the task, or I do, it made you think, hold on a second, like you said, I could have maybe give more time to this person, or recognizing your team construct of different people, different personalities, different approaches, we're all different, and our way doesn't mean the best. But we expect as a business owners to be just like us, right? We want everyone to behave like us, act like us, but the beauty of it that we are different, and allowing someone to pursue your task in a different way and be okay with that. I think that's a challenge in itself and a skill in itself, right? To learn as a business owner, as a leader.
Oh god, yeah, just letting go of those reins. It's funny, I was playing a board game with my kids the other day, and all my life playing cards or playing board games, all the rules always say, you go clockwise around the table. And we started playing this board game, and my kids started going anti-clockwise with the turns, and I couldn't handle it at first. I was like, no, the way it's supposed to be done is we go this way. And that was really interesting, just learning to let go and be like, hang on a second, this is the way that they want to do it, they're going to do it. Is the outcome going to be the same? Yes. So what are we here for? We're here to have fun. And am I really going to impose that it's my way or the highway? God, no. So, yeah, it's tough when you own your own business and you think it should be done a certain way. Letting go of that and softening around that is a real skill.
And you might surprise yourself, right, with the outcome.
Ideally.
Ideally. I love that. That's... I think that the strength of leadership and personal development. I also think, as a business owner, if you don't see the results from your team done in a way that you want them to do, I think one of the mindset tools that you can adopt, instead of thinking is them, there is something wrong with them, they're not listening, what's wrong with me? It's my instruction. It starts with me. I'm the leader. There's something that I haven't delivered, engaged, explained, delegated, empowered, equipped, whatever, with that person for them not to do that task or perform or get the result that I want. The leadership starts with you, right? It always starts with you rather than them. It's easy to blame them, right? It's easy to say, oh yeah, but actually, in reality, how strong you are as a leader, what's not happening here? Where's the gap, right? What you're missing here? Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We've got the same brains, the same body, the same intelligence. You're obviously employing those people, you're taking their CVs and, the level of education. So they can perform your task. They can do what you expected them to do. It just... how you communicate that, right? What the expectations, and like I said, the leadership skills, what do I need to develop? Can I let it go?
Yeah, I mean, one mantra I've had with staff before when they're dealing with customers is to say, what more can I do? Can I go one step further for this person? And then, like you were saying just there, Julia, to take that back and do that for the way that you're dealing with your employees is really important. To go, well, what more could I do, or what could I have done differently in that situation that might have driven a different outcome? If you're frustrated with all your staff, I think you said earlier, you might have listeners to the podcast saying, well, all of my staff are letting me down. There's only one constant in all of those relationships, and that's the founder, right? So hopefully that frustrated business owner can go, if I'm having frustrations with all of my employees, then there's something that I've got to change that landscape.
So, how often do you, like you said, learning and development was structured in your contract, right?
For myself, yeah.
I love that. That's such a powerful clause, or I guess task that you added. And on that note, what kind of things do you do as a business owner, as a leader, in terms of learning and development?
In terms of learning and development, certainly, like I said, I've had an epiphany on business books. So a good chunk of it is straight up sitting down and reading.
But the question is now, I can hear that again screaming from the listeners and the viewings. When do you find the time?
You can, but schedule it into your diary. And actually, a lot of the things we've talked about today, it's really tough with if you schedule time for reading, or if you schedule time to go to the gym or run or cycle or play badminton or paddle, whatever it is you want to be doing, or do your art or your knitting or your music, whatever your passion is, or have those one-to-ones with the team, and you've put those in the diary. It's so easy for them to be expendable hours when you get to them and go, oh gosh, but if only I had the time now to answer these emails in my inbox, or to do this. So that takes incredible diligence. That's the super hard bit about it, right? Is to go, no, this is the time that I'm doing that, and therefore I will. So I definitely have things that help with that. So if it is time to sit down and read, then this is where I go to do that. Don't try and do it at the desk. With my 30 hours of working, I physically come to the office for those 30 hours. I can't work from home because there's all the other distractions there. So I'm coming in the door at this time, and I will be leaving by that time. And having kids helps, because you have to be out the door at a certain time to pick them up from school. Tricking yourself, putting constraints in, using geography and using location to trigger behavior. Reducing decision fatigue. I'm a big believer that in all the micro decisions we make in a day are absolutely exhausting. It's an old piece of advice, but if you are planning to go for a run the next day, putting your trainers out the day before so you don't have to make that decision. The fewer small micro decisions you can make in a day, the better.
Love that. So if you're planning to read a book, put it out there on your desk, on your table, whatever it's going to be, right? And have you ever practiced setting up a tasks or things to do night before? Like before you go to bed.
Back when I was using Trello as my task management, that would be, okay, there's a long list of things that I've got to do. And before finishing for a day, dragging across, right, these are the 3 that really matter tomorrow. If I achieve nothing else tomorrow, then I want to do those 3. And I would do that before I left. Motion, sort of take that to I sound like I'm a motion advert today. I'm promoting it so much. But that takes it one step further, because that's automatically doing it based on the priorities you've set it to do. But also understanding that not every day is going to be a great day. I saw a visualization of this the other day, that we think that hard work or that effort and achievement is, I think it showed 5 full glasses of water, and saying that's what we think is high output or high effort or high achievement. And actually, understanding that you're not going to be 100% every single day. And it showed another picture of some glasses almost overflowing because the day has been so fantastic. But some days there's only a bit of water in there because you've not had a great day. But what matters is you turned up and you tried and you kicked some things forward, even if it wasn't a superb day. So giving yourself a bit of slack on that.
Love that. And it's kind of corresponds quite well with 80-20 rule, right? Pareto law, that 20% of your activities can create 80% of your output and results.
Well, absolutely. And that's why I limit to 30 hours, because if I did another 30, it would be 10% of the output of those first 30. And the tough thing is, I do kick back. I think that Silicon Valley has got a part to play in this mantra and this idea that business owners need to work 60, 70, 80 hours, and it's burnout culture. And I really do kick back against that. And I think the tough part about it is that you become irreplaceable in your business. You start to look at employing someone to cover your hours, and you're doing 80, and well, they're only going to do it half as well as you are. So suddenly you need 3 full-time employees just to cover what you're doing. You'll be stuck there forever. So be conscious of that from the start.
And before we wrap up, obviously, like with your working life balance, you're a business owner, but also you're a dad. You've got 3 kids, you said, right?
3 kids, yeah.
So tell me more about that. Do you then switch off? Like time came, 6 hours done, that's it, laptop shut down, and you fully engage with your family, your kids. You don't answer phone calls, you don't check emails. What happens on the family front?
Categorically, yeah. The most wonderful thing about owning my own business over the last couple of decades, or certainly in the 9 years since I had children, is how present I've been able to be for them. It's been wonderful. We haven't had to have a lot of wraparound childcare. I do see where people have the 9 to 5. The commute makes it 8 to 6, and so it's breakfast clubs and tea time clubs. That hasn't been part of our reality. It's been dropping the kids at school, picking them up at 3:15, spending that time with them. And work does, I refuse to let it come. So I'm only answering emails when I'm in the office. Phone calls aren't coming through to my mobile. They're only coming through to an office phone that I make sure isn't bouncing to my mobile. So really, I'm good at sandboxing the time. This is work time. This is family time. This is me time. I don't let the family time intrude on the me time either. I'm very deliberate about that also.
So you set strict boundaries and expectations, and you laser focus on activities that you're doing when you're in business. You're purely in business. Like you said, you've got separate office. You don't work from home. It's purely office hours, and I give myself all. I'm being the most productive in those 6 hours. But then once that time expires, I come home and I'm purely dad, I'm husband, and everything else can wait until next day when I'm back in the office, right? And you don't have that urges that there is something urgent, I need to answer this, or, like I can't wait until next day, I need to deal with that now.
Yeah, I mean, going back a number of years, I probably did have those urges, and I would take phone calls because I thought it couldn't wait, and I thought that the future success of the business depended on me answering every single phone call or email promptly. And actually you learn it doesn't. Like, stuff can wait. And actually you train your customers as well. At the bottom of my email now says you'll get a reply in 1 to 2 days. Making sure that people know that you're not coming back to an email every 30 seconds. It's not supposed to be an instantaneous form of communication. Phone calls are for instantaneous forms of communication. Email supposedly replaced mail. When people were sending letters, they weren't expecting a reply the same day. So I try and make sure that email obeys those same timescales. You soon learn that the world is not going to burn down because you don't reply to something instantaneously. And you can bring more to the business because of it.
Love that. Mindset, setting boundaries, being structured, experiment and see what happens, right? Because I think only from that place we can really be fulfilled and feel happy, because very often and very quickly, like you said, you can find yourself in burnout. You've got those expectations of social media that you have to work hard, you have to knock in like 60 hours a week. Otherwise, you're not good enough, you're not productive, you're not, whatever. But actually, matter of fact, like you said, we're not just business owners. We've got other roles in our lives. And if we're not fulfilling them and spending time in those, then we'll become very, very miserable quite quickly. And we'll be asking ourselves, what is this for?
Yeah. And then, sort of practice what I preach as well, even with employees. I would much rather see an employee that sort of at 3:30 went, I know exactly what it is that needs to be achieved. This is what I've done today. This is what's going to be done tomorrow. So I'm going out the door right now. Than one who, there's that. I remember I did work in pensions for a year, and it's almost like if you left at 5 o'clock, eyebrows are raised. It's like, why are you not staying to 5:30 or 6? And actually, the people that were working till 5:30 or 6 weren't working any harder or getting any more done. They'd just been sort of dragging things out and making sure they dragged things out and made it appear that they were pushing harder. So it's not just something that I do for myself, but it's something that I sort of try and instill for the whole team as well.
I love that. And I can really relate this to Warren Buffett, and I know we talk about investment, but Warren Buffett, he instructs his teams to pick just 5 top stocks and do analysis and due diligence on the whole of the market and only invest in 5 instead of like 100. Because those 5, he knows that they will do so much analysis, so much due diligence, so much, attention paying, that those 5 will be the best ones rather than like invest and spread into hundreds. So it's the same principle, right? Like if you've got this amount of hours, just give yourself best and you will become laser focused. You will become present. You will start thinking how I can give more in those hours. Can I delegate because I need to achieve that task? And you obviously proven walking, success story in that. And absolutely love you sharing this. And hopefully whoever is watching and listening to us right now, if you are in that space where you're just drowning in your list to do and you really want to delegate, hopefully you found some inspiration and taking key points away from this talk with Johnny. And as you know, I love bringing lots of different stories, lots of entrepreneurs to this podcast. So one thing I do ask everyone, please do follow, please subscribe, share it with other ones, because as a business owner, you can't go and complain to your customers. You can't go and complain to your team members. You can't even go and complain to your spouse, but you are a human being, right? So it's all lands on your shoulders. Let's spread the love with other like-minded people. So Johnny, thank you so much again for coming to Business Raw podcast. You've been amazing. And I always ask this question, if there is anything that you could have maybe advised the younger version of yourself, what that might be.
Oh, if I could advise the younger version of myself. It's lucky that I think I didn't know enough about business. If I knew then what I know now about the sort of accelerators and the support groups and how complicated it is, I might not have launched. I was really glad that I did, but perhaps I'd advise myself to sort of reach out and build a network sooner, to find a mentor sooner, to find someone who'd been through it. And in terms of finding a mentor, when I did find one, it's amazing. You've just got to ask. I think some people hold back and go, oh, yeah, I don't know if they want to. So many people are so willing to give time and expertise. So just find someone that you respect and say, hey, would you mind giving me some advice? And you'll be surprised how many people will say yes to that. But then the bit that I was glad that I did do, and I would give advice to anyone else, is if you're thinking about starting a business and you're having an iron, just do it. And because you don't know what's going to happen, and just that pure act of taking action, you'll be surprised what sort of will come to you. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Love that. Well, thank you so much. And here's to your roaring success.
Julia, thanks so much for having me today. Really appreciate it.